Alright, howdy, I'm Shintak, and here with Kari. We're going to be running Magic Knight Rayearth for the Sega Saturn. You ready for the countdown, Kari?
Sure, I'm selected on new game here and got all my stuff up and yeah, I think I'm ready.
Alrighty. I'll count down then. 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Alright, so this is the like one of the earlier Sega Saturn games released in Japan, but it ended up being the very last one released in the US just because there was a partial loss of source code. And right out of the box, we're going to start with a very big skip that we just call the Tokyo Tower skip, where it skips about 35 minutes of cutscenes. Ooh, wow, I got that right away. That's like the best luck you can get.
She didn't let me in.
Yeah, so basically, NPCs can push you out of bounds if you're in a corner, and they push you into the corner. It's very interesting. There's like other areas where you can do it, but this is the only point in the game where it's useful. Normally, you're supposed to go to the top of Tokyo Tower, chase your dog around, and then you get about 25 minutes of unskippable cutscenes, followed by a small side quest to get your weapons.
Come on, go down a little more.
Man, I can't believe I got this lucky.
A little bit more. Come on, lady. She's not. She went down, like, I loaded the game at the right time, and she went down, but I didn't get over there fast enough. So
oh no. But basically, we do a death warp, which you're not supposed to normally be able to do in Tokyo Tower, and it doesn't know where to put you, so it puts you in the first village of the game, and with all the correct flags set. And we're going to start by talking to this fellow Lucino, who's the main magician of this village. And, oh yeah, we're also in another world. This is basically an isekai game before isekai was popular, for those in the anime lingo.
Let me out! Let me out!
So basically this town is being plagued by monsters. Lucino would put up a barrier to stop them from coming in, but the barrier is failing, and we, as the foretold Magic Knights, are helping them out just because we were told to grow our weapons by, I don't know, helping people out and stuff. So we're going to do just that. And then we're getting sort of a tutorial dungeon. There is a dungeon before this, but this one is like a real tutorial dungeon where you get an idea for the puzzles and stuff to expect in the game. And it's mostly pushing blocks.
Well, I'm finally out of the wall.
Yeehaw!
It only took a whole extra minute to get through.
That's not so bad. That's usually
no, it's
about
awful.
what
You're in the first dungeon already.
Well, to be fair, I got really lucky. So now Lucino is, as an effort to keep his reputation, is doing everything he can to stop us. Oh, something happened. So basically, if I went any of those wrong paths, I'd just be teleported somewhere else in the dungeon, and then have to backtrack to there again. But we know where to go. And something you're going to see me and Kari doing in the run a lot is jumping into transition screens. If you're running and you jump into the screen, you get to keep your run speed in the next screen. If you just walk normally, you can't. So we learn how to push things. That's basically all we learn in this dungeon. I also learned that Lucino's a butt. But eventually, technically, like normally in the game, you get an ability to press the X button to run on command. But since this is a speed run, we're not going to go out of our way for that. We can go fast without it, without being able to run on command.
What do you call it? My control scheme didn't save when I changed it. So I did it twice.
Dang, really? I wonder why that is. This game is very similar to the Zelda games in terms of how it plays. This is the only Rayearth game in the series that's like that, though. There's two others. One's on the Super Nintendo, which more people are familiar with. There's also 2 on the Game Gear. The one on the Super Nintendo is just a very standard RPG. One of them on the Game Gear is mostly a standard RPG. There's some like dice elements, if I recall.
That's a Game Boy game, or was that something else too?
Was there a Game Boy game? That's right, there is. We found out there was a Game Boy game. I'm not sure what kind of game that is. But there's also another Game Gear game that's a Princess Maker style game, if you're familiar with that, with those kinds of games, where just basically raising the girls to be magic knights. Let's see here, gonna do a real tight jump there, and nice. And we're gonna learn our second spell for Fu. We technically have learned one spell for each character, but because of the Tokyo Tower skip, the icons don't show up for their first spell until they learn their second spell. Nice. Oh yeah, Polizu skip. So basically, there's something called a map glitch that we abuse later in the run, and there's one you can do in the first town that we were in that takes you to the final dungeon and reduces the length of the run to about under 15 minutes under optimal conditions, but it is a very difficult trick to do, requiring tons of precise movement that it's basically blind.
Yeah, I think the actual any % record is like 25 minutes around there or something.
Yeah, he took it very slow and careful, because you're basically going to the final dungeon with only 3 health and everything's going to one-shot you.
Yeah, the task time is like 13 minutes because you can just, task it.
Yeah. But, there is no PS1 version of this game. This was developed by Sega in-house. So now we're gonna, this boss fight is actually fairly long casually, especially being technically under-leveled. We're supposed to level up once to learn a charge attack. Let's see. But we're gonna do something called the magic swap glitch, where we swap to a character with mana, and then swap back to the character without mana, and it casts the character's spell without mana, but passes the mana check of the character. Let's see, but it's also something that you can mess up just like that, and then the spell will just fizzle and drain the mana anyways. There we go. And it just makes quick work of this boss that would otherwise take a very long time without charged attacks. Let's see. There we go. Alright. There's also a Sega Pico Rayearth game, if I recall, but if you're familiar with the Sega Pico at all, it's an educational platform, so it's not really like a game per se, just like a series of educational mini-games. How's the dungeon going for you, Kari?
Didn't get the jump, so I took the platform because I'm low on health.
Oh dang. That's a good plan.
When you die in this game... Get rid of these enemies, they're in the way.
Yeah, when you die in this game, you do, it's very safe game. If you die, you just go back to the start of the dungeon you were in, which we actually abuse later in the run to save some backtracking.
But it's annoying when you don't want to die, because you have to get redo the whole dungeon then.
Yeah. But at least all your progress is saved, like if you've cleared puzzles and stuff. But if you're familiar with Working Designs, they had localized this game themselves, and they actually had to rebuild a good chunk of the source code because it was lost in a hard drive crash, as most stuff in the 90s from Sega did. But if you're familiar with Working Designs, they also made this game more difficult. But I would say this is, of their games in the 90s, this is the only one that they did a really good job of rebalancing it, because the Japanese version of the game is very, very easy. Enemies aren't really a threat, they don't really hurt, they move really slow. Bosses move slower, they're pretty easy, but working designs made things harder. Enemies hit a lot harder. It's actually a fairly challenging game. Pico games are still games. Indeed they are. They are wonderful games. They're just not really games with a beginning and an end. So our new objective is to learn how to swim.
So I guess we're doing this boss the long way.
Oh no, that sucks.
I didn't even get one shot off. I got my first magic glitch did not even work, so.
Oh no. Let's see. Oh, right, that
And
button.
I didn't pick the health potion up because no safeties. Because you don't pick safeties up.
So basically, we want to learn how to swim so we can go to the next town to continue our objective. We were told to go seek out the ancient machines, which were hidden volcano, sea, and sky. And since we're next to the sea, we need to be able to swim, and we don't know how to swim. Whoops. Okay, that was bad.
The boss take, do you know?
Yeah, huh?
Do you know how many hits the boss takes?
Without a charge attack, a lot. So I accidentally left Polizu after entering in. That's like a minute extra time because the load times in this game are pretty lengthy. Okay, let's try that again. So we talked to some random guy in a house, and then we talked to a girl whose name is Sarah, and she had lost her pet. It drowned, sadly. And this guy named Caltus failed to save it and had decided to exile himself from town because he felt that he failed this little girl. So we want to learn how to swim, and he's like the only guy who can teach us, and he's not exactly willing. So we're just gonna bully him until he teaches us, but we end up leaving empty-handed. Don't worry, I'll take it extra risky in the in that section later. So now we're going back to see Sarah again, and then we'll find Caltus there as well. Just kind of curious on how Sarah's doing. Find out that Sarah has a new pet now, and that she's doing a lot better. She's no longer upset at him for what happened.
I think I should have just died and did the dungeon again.
I imagine he's almost dead. No, none of the VAs from the anime are in this game. This is entirely working designs in-house, which is a good thing from what I've heard. I hear the English dub is pretty poor for the anime, but the English dub in the working designs game is really good. But there's not a whole lot of the game dubbed. In the Japanese version, the entirety of the game is dubbed, and you can't skip dubbed cutscenes. Thankfully, working designs, in their effort to be cheap, reduce the number of talking cutscenes.
I missed a shot, of course I did.
So we're gonna get a tutorial cutscene, which is voiced between Clef, who's currently a stone statue, and Prisia, who's at her home, waiting for us.
And Precia's mysterious.
And there's also a lot of cutscenes pulled from the anime as well.
Hikaru and the others have mastered the skill known as Roaring Rapid.
And they're pretty decent quality for the Saturn, especially for how early this game came out.
The girls have learned how to swim like beavers.
Because the Saturn was not known for doing good pre-render videos.
By pressing the attack button while in the water, the girls swim forward. It's that easy.
Okay, that's it for now. We hope
Just
you
to
enjoyed
let
the
everybody
game.
know as well, there is a
See you later,
donation
kids.
incentive for this game to not skip the Caldina boss fight. That's a $75 donation incentive, and all that money is, of course, going to No Kids Hungry. So hopefully we can get that met for these guys.
Yep. So now there's all these whirlpools that have come up, and basically no one's been able to fish because of them. Normally there's this whole like series of movements you have to do to get around them, but it turns out if you just mostly hold up, you'll go straight to where you want to go. But to expand on that Caldina fight incentive, there is a second time where we fight Caldina that's normally skipped in the run because of a large series of dungeon skips. But with your donation, we could do that fight. It's actually a pretty neat fight. So now we're in the ice dungeon, because every RPG needs an ice dungeon, and these guys hurt a lot. And I need Hikaru alive. She is very important. Basically, we cannot complete this dungeon without her. There we go. So Hikaru is the red-haired girl, Umi is the blue-haired girl, and Fu is the blonde. And they each have their own unique talents in terms of like how they attack and what their spells are. Hikaru has like a sort of a short range but wide attack. Umi has a very long but narrow attack and she does the most damage in the game of all three characters of just her basic attacks. But with the magic glitch, the basic attacks aren't really all that important. So I'm gonna switch to her. And Fu's the weakest. She does her magic's basically a support kind of magic. So you go over here. Okay. Switch to you. So now we're going to learn Hikaru's second spell, which is needed to clear a puzzle in this dungeon. And it's also a fairly strong spell. It does an area clear, but it costs 3 mana to cast. So I'm going to try to be careful. Okay, good. He's not in a bad spot. Switch to you. Okay, there we go. Second try. So I gotta trying to be a little bit more careful because I'm a little bit lower health than I'd like. But we'll figure out our way around. Just gotta be careful. Those guys can chase you down. There we go. Okay, we're out of this dungeon. We're safe now. So we have to clear all these enemies. Fu's attack is pretty great for it. It has a short animation. And it does just enough to kill them. They don't hurt you at all. They just knock you around, which is pretty handy. Actually, no, I want to switch to Hikaru. And you can actually melt these ice blocks that you need to use. I've actually done that by accident when casually playing this game. There we go. So now we're going to encounter our first ancient machine, which will be Umi's machine, and I believe its name is Saris. But the pace of this run is pretty brisk. The game itself is at decent length. You could probably beat it in under 10 hours. And if you go for 100%, there's these like rainbow amulets you can collect for extra unlockables and stuff. It's nothing particularly great, but you can unlock a sound test and outtakes that's like famous in Working Designs games by collecting all the rainbow amulets and beating the game. So now we're gonna meet Ascot, who is one of Zagot's minions. Zagot's basically the big bad guy. Kidnapped the princess and drove Sephiroth into chaos. And now Ascot here has turned Sarah's little pet into a giant monster. Poor little Jiminy. It's now being used for evil. But basically, Princess Emerald is like the cornerstone of Sephiroth. She maintains peace and balance, and now that she's not doing that, Sephiroth's gone into chaos. And we were summoned here to save the princess. And those who have seen the anime know what's up. So Jiminy here is a pretty easy fight. He has a couple of attacks, but all we need to do is lead him to the right side and he can't hit us. But we're just going to also use Hikaru's magic to just bring him down as well. There we go. So for this boss, you can actually over-damage him, but you can tell when he's one hit away from death by when he turns red like that. And then after that, he's dead. You can continuously damage him beyond that, and I've actually done that by accident. Yeah, poor Jiminy. He didn't deserve this. But so he can't sustain this new form that he was given, and basically collapses from exhaustion. And disappears. So now we're telling Ascot off and he decides just to leave us. But we had proven our strength to Ceres, the ancient machine, and now we have our own Gundam. That's also a water dragon. How you doing, Kari?
I just entered the dungeon and I got hit right away.
Ooh, that happened to me too. The ogres are out to get us. So also in the Japanese version of the game, the animated cutscenes are unskippable, which makes the run, if you're to say glitchless, do the run, makes it about 90 minutes longer to do it in Japanese, just because of all the voice acting and cutscenes. But if those weren't a factor, the Japanese version would be faster, just because bosses have less health. You can do more risky strats. Oh yeah, so the Casa guy, the guy in the middle, in the upper middle is Zagot, guy on the right is a Nova, and we have Ascot on the bottom, and the one encased in crystal is Alcyone. She appeared earlier in a cutscene where she tried to attack us and get us before we started our journey and got turned to crystal for failing. But we'll see her again. Caldina's like a recurring, or not Caldina, Alcyon's a recurring villain. Okay, whoops. So now that we have the ancient machine, the waters are calm again. And we can move on to the next town, the Ice Village of Rosen, which is actually not an ice village according to the villagers, but what happened is a volcano erupted and completely changed the climate from what it was. So, gotta be careful here. Alright. I actually had once where I got a soft lock there where I ran into the NPC while getting on the dock and I just couldn't move anymore. It was very bizarre. So here in Rosen, basically it's next to a volcano and we were told to go to a volcano, and so our only assumption is that this is the volcano to go to. But here, Caldina is using her dancing magic to mesmerize the villagers. Basically to mine the volcano to try to get the ancient machine before we do. Oop, nice. So we're going to totally ignore Caldina. What we want to talk to is a fella named Varia, which we technically saw earlier in the game. And Fu here is kind of a thing for Vario and is pretty peeved that he's playing his instrument to all these women. But he actually has an ulterior motive. He's doing that to prevent them from being hypnotized by Caldina. So we're gonna go stay at an inn, which, you know, is a typical plot point of RPGs. Go stay at an inn advances the plot. The inns in this game don't do anything but advance the plot. You can't stay at one unless it's plot related. If you need to heal, there's those water fountains that heal you up. But after every boss fight, you get full health again. Well, almost every boss fight. So yeah, here it's nighttime. Something fishy's going on. And we get woken up from our sleep to go check it out. Because somehow everybody knows we're Magic Knights. So, like, while most of the cutscenes have their voice acting cut, they still exist on the Japanese voice acting still exists on the disc. And the reason for, like, cutting the voice acting according to their translation notes is that there wasn't enough space on the disc, but clearly there was enough space for the entire Japanese voice tracks.
It almost sounds like they couldn't, like, decouple those tracks from the disc without messing things up more, maybe?
Probably. But instead, they did voice act. There's these. Each girl has their own diary. In the Japanese version, those are not voiced. But in the US version, you can open them up and then press confirm on them to hear them talking with, like, their inner monologue voice, and it's pretty cool.
Alright, let's not heck up Jiminy.
That sounds like a good idea. So now we're in a very unique dungeon here. I believe it's called the Tempting Cave? I don't remember. I can't remember the dungeon names and right when I don't have my splits up.
It's Bewildering Cave.
Bewildering Cave, thank you.
Tempting Cave's the first dungeon.
Yeah. So we're going to learn Umi's second spell here. Nope, didn't get it. So there's a trick that was found that saves about 40 seconds where if you jump in between cutscenes on that mirror, you can go out of bounds and go straight to the boss. But I have yet to been able to pull that off, and I always still try for it because you don't really lose time trying to get it. Okay, switch to her. So, Umi is needed for this dungeon to enter the boss room because there's those 4 torches that were passing by that we need to extinguish all at once, and that's the only spell that can do that. But before that, we have to get rid of this monster because this monster takes priority over the solving the puzzle. There we go. And switch. And so then from here on out, we're going to be using Fu's magic because it's the same damage as Hikaru's magic, but it's shorter, has a shorter animation, has less lag frames. And now we're going to be fighting Caldina for the first time, and just remember there is a donation incentive to fight her a second time later in the game in a fight that we would normally skip in the speed run.
I'm gonna be slow and pick up a safety potion.
That's a good idea. I plan to pick up some safety potions later myself.
Well, I'm gonna buy one, so that takes even longer.
Oh yeah, because when you buy an item, the shopkeeper dances around.
Yeah, I'm not. After Arachnadia, I'm not trusting myself with magic glitches for Caldina, so.
That's totally
Jiminy
understandable.
went fine. Jiminy I only missed one magic. So if magic glitch wasn't explained, like you're switching characters and doing magic at the same time, so I'm pressing. We both have the same control layout, so we're pressing Z and C at the same time on the controller, and it's basically a frame perfect glitch to do that.
Yeah.
I guess it's almost like they take, like, I don't know, the same frame, one frame after each other, I don't know, but you're pressing the buttons at the same time. If it's just a little bit off, then obviously it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick up a magic potion, because Caldina, you saw it on Shentalk's side, Caldina fight, if you mess up hitting her with magic and you have no magic, you have to either plunk her with Fu, or wait until she's doing the dancey around you attack and hit the right one, so you damage her and not yourself.
Yeah, she does an
And
illusion dance attack.
Fu doesn't have a level up yet, so she doesn't have her charge shot, and she's not as strong as the other characters. Like, in general, she's not as strong as the other characters anyway. So it's really bad if you run out of magic against Caldina. So
Yeah, the thing with Fu is that when she levels up, she doesn't get more damage, but she gets a charge shot that has homing arrows, and the higher the level, the more arrows there are.
It seems.
And without her homing arrows, it's very difficult to hit Caldina because she's moving all the time. So it's not a fight you want to mess up Magic Glitch with when you're under-leveled. Because technically, when you do the first dungeon, which is just basically a confusion type of dungeon.
it's just like about learning movement and how to jump and how to fight enemies. There's no puzzles in it.
Yeah. Everyone gets one level up where they learn their charge attack. But since we skipped that, we are a level behind.
I
From the
noticed
start of the
something
game.
though. When I finished, since I didn't pick up any extra health or stuff like I usually do, when I finished Tempting Cave, everyone had 4 HP and 4 MP.
Yeah, that's
So it's
normal.
like they get like the level up bonus kind of, but not the actual charge attack.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Because when you
So-
level up, your HP and MP also raise, and you're supposed to get like powerful attacky more stronger too. But this is the first time I noticed that your HP and MP go up on everybody, not just Hikaru. Everybody goes up 1 point.
Yeah, it's very strange. So now we've met Rafarga. We want to go to the next town, but there's a boulder blocking the path. And Rafarga is the only one who knows how to get past it. And so he's going to teach us how to do it by slamming into his wall of ice for a door. And the story of Rafarga is that he was one of Princess Emerald's royal guard and had sequestered himself into exile because he failed to protect the princess because basically he couldn't do anything against Zagat. And we basically rekindled his fighting spirit. But since we failed learning the pulverizing bash, as the game calls it, we decided just to crash at his place for the night. And he's just giving us his backstory. And then we hear a scream from Umi, who sounds like she's in mortal danger, but turns out it's just a bug on the bed.
That's mortal danger.
Truly. That's the real villain of the game right there, that little bug. And here we get another tutorial cutscene.
And Precia's,
Mysterious Sephiroth Lecture number 3.
you've just mastered the skill known as the pulverizing bash.
So there was a
Indeed.
Mysterious
By running
Sephiroth
to
Lecture
increase
number
your
1, but
speed,
we skipped
the
that
power
because
to throw yourselves
that's just in the
increases
cutscenes
as well.
we skip, and it
You
just
can
teaches
destroy
you how to
places
save the
with weak
game
foundations
with
or small
Makona.
cracks with incredible ease.
But be sure to give yourself plenty of room to run so you can increase your speed.
That's right. Make a good approach, start running, and then boom!
That's all for today, kids. We'll let you get back to your game now. Have fun.
Remember, boom!
Remember, boom. Very important. So now we can break down soft walls as long as we have a running start. And that pairs well with the instant dash technique that we do not learn later in the run. Because there's actually, if you want to go for all the rainbow amulets, you do require the instant dash technique to get a couple of them. Alright, so I'm gonna go... Oop, there we go. Okay. Ooh, the NPC almost blocked me. So, there actually, in the Japanese version, is some leftover debug code where you can get all the abilities early, but it's impossible to leave this town before completing the dungeon, because it's technically a different version of the town. If you try to break that wall, it just acts like a wall. Whoops.
I talked to the mirror twice, okay.
Oh, I did that too.
I can see why you can, like, you know, jump or skip or something, because
Yeah.
you talk to it twice before the cutscene thing is just figuring out the momentum to have your jump after talking to the mirror so that you can jump through it, or however that glitch works. I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. Like, I saw it done, I saw inputs, and I just don't get it. So now we're like in a... It's a dungeon, but not quite a dungeon, I guess. Oh wow, I got past that dude without getting hit. So these
It's a
lava
mini
monsters
dungeon.
really hurt. Also falling hurts.
Yeah, it really stinks when you, dude! Little bubble monster bubbled me. I was just talking about it. It really hurts when you get hit and then get knocked into a, pit, because then you take, you know, extra damage, because you take 1 damage, you take however many damage the attack did, and then 1 damage for falling in a pit.
Yep.
And then sometimes you can fall in a pit multiple times, because the game doesn't put you back right at the correct spot.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I'll use it over here.
Man, I'm having a really good fire dungeon though. Or, I forget what this dungeon's called, actually. Yeah, Felix, there's, several Magic Knight Rayearth games. This one's just the best one.
Super
This is-
Famicom RPG's not bad. I've never finished it, but it's not bad.
Now, this is the only one that was officially translated.
Yeah, this is the only official game. Alright, Caldina.
So yeah, no boss in this dungeon, but we do have a burning mansion coming up, and that's really exciting. Everyone loves a burning mansion. Oh, NPCs are blocking the path. So if we talk to the NPCs, we'll find out there's a kid in here that we need to rescue, and we can't leave the town anyways because the path is blocked off by debris. So this mansion's like kind of like a maze where there's several keys to be grabbed, and they're color-coded to various doors. You can see one right there. And we're just basically just going around back and forth through the mansion and avoiding these fire rats to try and keep our running speed, because the longer you run, the faster you move, of course. And sometimes, like right here, ooh, nice, the rats can be really kind to you and you can just keep running for a long time. That is very rare RNG.
Alright, Caldina wasn't bad. I dropped Magic Glitch once, but I just switched over to Hikaru.
Nice. Once is pretty good. So now we got the red key. And now we need to get the blue key and the green key, because this is an RGB kind of game. Yes, this is the Sega Saturn, which indeed has a C button. This is the only Rayearth game that's an action-adventure style RPG. 2 of them are regular JRPG style games. One of them is a Princess Maker. And then there's also one on the Sega Pico that's an educational game. Alright, so now we have all 3 keys in hand. We can go straight into saving that kid there. Look at that, they even let us know where he is.
Stuck on the wall. If you don't go too far right. If you go too far right in the snow town, then you fall down a bunch of slopes, which
Oh,
I
God.
think they lead you to a rainbow amulet, but it takes forever, and you're like back at the start of the town. I keep forgetting where Farga doesn't live that far over.
Yeah, there is a rainbow amulet, and there's also a health upgrade, I believe. So this is Alcyone. She set the fire. She wants her revenge, and we're not going to let her have it. These fire skulls, they take extra damage from water attacks, and this is the only time in the game where the element of your magic matters. Hikaru's magic deals no damage. Umi's magic deals extra damage. So we can defeat this boss in as little as 4 hits on the second phase, when it can take a lot of hits if you're not using magic. Also, he just hits like a truck as well. Nice. But yeah, this game is very, very fun. If you're into collecting games, I do not recommend collecting the US version of this game. It is very, very expensive in recent months.
I mean, it was steady. It was steady for about 400 for a while, but it shot up to $500-600 now.
With some copies selling for almost $1,000.
Yeah, for some reason one went for 1,200 recently, and I was like,
There's nothing
okay.
special about it.
Yeah, it was just the same variant of the game that I have, because there's 3 disc variants.
Yeah, one for
there's
each
like-
girl.
There's around, I've heard 12,000, I've heard 9,000 copies of this game, of the US version, and there's 3 disc variants.
It seems as if Alcyone has been denied
Plus,
success
Saturn game,
once
plus
more.
Working Designs game.
Yeah, US Saturn
Getting
games tend to command a premium, and
And-
Working Designs commands a premium as well.
Yeah. And the manual had stickers included in it, so that bumps it up if you have like a copy that has the stickers still in it.
Yeah, sadly my copy does not have the
But
stickers,
unnecessary
but
for
you
now
know,
because-
considering how long ago I got it, I'm fine
I
with
have the stickers.
it. You also have the disc I want. Because I have, my disc has Fu on it, Kari says Umi, and I want the Umi disc. Back when I originally bought this game, I wanted to buy all 3 variants, and I was like, oh, I'll just wait a while, you know, they're kind of expensive, but not terribly so, at like $170. And then the price shot up to like $300, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm not doing that. I don't know if we've hit the incentive up, but we hit the cutoff point.
I'm refreshing the page one last time to check on that. And it looks like we did not meet the incentive for the Caldina boss fight.
Oh well, just means we finish 5 minutes sooner. So normally we're supposed to be in this town of Lyrie where we learn the instant dash technique. We also help the town to what's the word I'm looking for? Cure diseases. Basically, the Tree of Life has leaves with medical properties. But we're going to skip all that, thanks to something called the map glitch. That is actually used for the Polizu skip that we don't do in the run. But it does have another purpose in the game. And here in Lack Attack Falls. Normally there's a boulder here that prevents us from continuing until we clear the Tree of Life. Which is like my favorite dungeon in the game, but sadly we have to skip it. But it also means we skip my least favorite dungeon in the game, which is the Waterfall dungeon. Oh yeah, Working Designs has a long history. So here we're trying to do a frame perfect button press when we leave this cutscene, and it'll give us the map sprites, which are a lot smaller, and it also displaces our location. Let's see, it's also a 1-frame trick, so we just have to time it just right. And you can't, if you overmash it, you just go back to the map, which we don't want. If you don't mash it at the right time.
Sorry,
nothing
making weird
happens.
noises.
Yeah.
Doing some I kept run speed in the first jumping area in Crimson Underpass, and
Nice.
I was slip sliding all over the place. Somehow
Yeah.
I didn't fall.
Yeah, running movement is very slippery, but that's why I love this game. Yeah, this trick, I might be here for a couple minutes if I don't get lucky. No, I got it, but I overmashed. But if you see, just for that small moment, I was like out of bounds. Although technically, I'm not quite out of bounds, and the best way I can describe it is being in between bounds.
Yeah,
You can go you can go truly out of bounds, but the game just lets you load back into the area, so like nothing happened.
Yeah, if you press, as in when I describe the glitch, it's like you tap up once you're out of in the boundary there, because if you press up like a whole press basically, you're out of bounds.
Yeah, I actually tap up right myself.
I
we go.
I make sure I tap up, I tap right.
So now
And, make sure
we just skip that story boulder there and just move on to the next area. And now I'm trying to do a map glitch fix where if you just press confirm on the correct frame, and I'm using a turbo controller, and I got it. Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's basically
hard.
a 50-50 chance with turbo whether or not you get it. By seeing the map screen, that shows that we fixed the map glitch. Normally when you travel to a new area with the map glitch, it doesn't connect the two spots on the map. So we'd have to return to the old location, then go back to the new location to connect the dots. Because we need that for later in the game to do some backtracking. And while there is another way around, there's just more loading screens to connect the dots on the map. So it's just faster to fix it there if you don't get it. So now we're in Lekuido, which is a lake village. And due to the map glitch, we get animated dialogue here, where technically like the portraits are supposed to be animated when there's voice acting, but since Working Designs cut them out, there's normally no animation here. But due to a bug with the map glitch, when we talk to this kid, you get to see the dialogue. So you get a little bit of the story here. Basically, there's been a monster, not necessarily ravaging the town, but it's been causing quakes of sorts, just by moving around, and a bookcase got knocked over, broke his mom's arm, and he wants revenge on the monster now, even though the monster was just moving around. So we tried to talk sense to the kid. We're just going to stay the night, since this guy's running an inn as well. Remember, all inns are plots.
Really hate how the fire dogs or fire rats move faster than you. You can just see them like inching up on you as you're running.
Yeah, they move so fast. So, with the nature of this game, we do not get a good night's sleep. That's just not going to happen. So we hear the monster lurking about. Nero comes and tells us of his plan, and we have to go save him. Because he's just a young lad. He's not ready to take on the monsters of the world. Although you could honestly say that most people in the world of Sephiroth are not prepared to take on monsters.
Yeah, because they're not used to it.
Yeah, basically, Princess Emerald made the world a safe place by praying with her thought magic. And she has the most powerful thought magic. Because that's like basically how magic works in this game, is just how strong your thinking is.
Game, please. Let me through.
Ooh, let's turn it off.
Let me through.
So this dungeon is divided into an east and west section, and it's a very difficult dungeon. There's some really fast chimera-looking monsters that deal 4 points of damage, and we're pretty slim on health, so we want to be careful about that. But we do want to take damage, because we want to do a death warp to return to the start of the dungeon. We're going to the end of each section to get a medallion. Ooh, nice.
I got like walled right at the end of the fire dungeon, because the 3 rats were on top of me, and I got stuck in the fire. So I was just taking damage like constantly, so I had to heal before I hit the fountain.
Oh no, I've had that happen. Okay, switch to you.
Yeah, Working Designs did a lot of... I recommend looking up their history, like hate them or like them. A lot of people don't like them these days, but they definitely brought over a lot of games that would not have come over in the first place.
Yeah, I love them. I don't like their balance choices. Except for this game. This game they did well.
I'm the weirdo who likes the US version of Silhouette Mirage more than the Japanese version in terms of balance, so...
I haven't played the US version, so I'll take your word on that.
I'm just used to it, really.
That's totally understandable. One thing I like about it is that they added a turbo function by default. From what I recall you telling me. Because basically in the Japanese versions you have to mash really hard in that game. So actually I have a little too much.
I don't think so, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, Fire Boss went down very easily. That was probably one of the smoothest fights I've had for that boss. Usually, I usually just like to say I hate this dungeon because I always get lost in it, but I did the dungeon like perfectly, and then the boss went down
Nice.
very smoothly.
That's awesome. All that practice paying off.
What practice?
Yeah, that practice.
What practice? I think I didn't even did it. I practiced this dungeon once
Yeah, exactly.
in the last week.
I'm just letting each of the girls die so we can get back to the start of the dungeon, because it's a lot faster than just trying to trek our way back. And this game is just so kind like that. So now we're going to be doing the western, western half, which is significantly more difficult. There's a lot more of those enemies. There's a lot more things that just wanna eat you up. And they put a lot of those chimeras near the end where we need to get to, and it's very scary. In the Japanese version, it's nothing, because they only do like 1 point of damage. But in the US version, they do 4 points. But at the same time, if you're playing casually, it's not too terrible. They still die the same amount of hits, and they're pretty manageable. But when you're under-leveled and trying to go fast, it's very scary. It's like even these butterflies here, they're out for blood. Like that, see? Out for blood, I tell you. Ah, hitting all the walls. Okay, it's fine.
Menu when I hit Tree of Life. Thinking, oh, I need to save here. You don't need to save in this one. So the Japanese version has memory leak problems if you play for a long time.
Yeah.
The game just starts lagging more and more and more. So in that, well, at least in the, I don't know if the normal speedrun you do it, but in the glitchless speedrun, you save it's about halfway through in that run, so you save there and hard boot the system.
Yep.
Glitchless was fun to run. It's a very chill run because there's a lot of downtime because it's just a lot of cutscenes and whatnot. All right, let's do boulder skip.
Let's see. Oh, I forgot to grab a potion, so I guess I'll just grab one. Oh well. Let's see, I'll switch to you.
Like 4 or 5 tries for me. And I didn't overmash once.
Nice.
So.
Butterflies. Yeah, they're out for blood. Let's see, I don't know what I want to do here. I guess I'll heal.
I didn't get the map fix, so I'll have to.
Dang.
I have to leave town and go back into town. So that's like.
It's a good example, though. Okay.
I don't have a turbo controller, so I was just mashing the buttons. I mashed pretty quickly, so I was just mashing the buttons as fast as possible. But
Yeah,
I wonder what the success rate is on non-turbo.
Probably about the same, because there's only so fast you can mash. Okay, come on, get me. There we go. Alright, now we got both medallions. There's basically the Twilight and Sunrise medallion. And now we can use that to fight the boss. And the boss is basically the monster that's been causing the quakes in the town. There we go. And it turns out this island that we were on was actually the monster all along. And we have freed it from its grassy and leafy confines. And so we find Nero on top of the giant monster's head. And we can just spam our water magic. There is iframes, but the iframes are short enough that we can continuously cast the spell.
Yeah, there's like two kinds of bosses in this game. There's like human type bosses and monster type bosses. Monster type bosses have shorter iframes, or their iframes aren't dependent on their attacks. So you can just usually chain your magic spells over and over to defeat them. While with human type bosses like Caldina, and I guess Caldina's the only one we fought so far. Well, like Caldina and some other ones coming up.
Yeah.
Their iframes last a lot longer, or they kind of have like invisible iframes, like they're not blinking. So you have to wait till they attack again, and then their iframes are dropped.
Yeah. Although there's like a couple of monsters that have the human style iframes for whatever reason, but mostly monsters have iframes that count down while you're casting a spell.
The one that I think of that's a monster boss that has human iframes makes sense in the context of like what he is. So
yeah. So it turns out the turtle is actually a pretty nice guy, just trying to shake off the debris on its back. And the turtle can actually fly and will take us to where we need to go to next, which is the Sky Village of Aruria. I know that sounds funky, but that's like how it's written.
alright. Time for Lake Dungeon. I forgot to split for Boulder Skip.
And so now we're in the Sky Village. And basically, we want to go to Heaven's Labyrinth, which is where Fu's ancient machine is located, but the mayor has decided that no one's allowed to enter the labyrinth. So we're going to go appeal to the mayor, see if he'll give us a key.
First thing that happens when I walk into Lake Dungeon is I get hit twice by a chimera.
Oh no.
Two different characters at least, but
yeah, that happens to me usually. You have to like be extra low. You can be lower than what it looks like on screen.
Yeah, I moved down first, and it was just like, nah, you're gonna get this guy's gonna chase you down.
Yeah.
And now I'm like actually really low on health, so I'm gonna heal.
So the mayor's like, nah, no one's allowed entry, not even you girls who claim to be the Magic Knights. So we just get tossed out. Hikaru has her little cat ears. So we're gonna go stay at the plot inn, and this is the only plot in the game where we get a full night's rest. It's funny, despite being a long-time runner of this game, I've yet to read the manga or watch the anime. I always plan to get around to it, just bad at starting anime. So now we find out the key has been stolen, and since we were the only one asking about it, apparently we stole it, despite coming in and asking about it. So now we're going to be doing a Metal Gear Solid section where we need to sneak our way through to the crime scene without getting caught. And this is probably the easiest part in the run to lose a lot of time if you're trying to go fast. The guards, they're deaf, but they have really good narrow eyesight. They have no peripheral vision, but if they see you or you run into them, you get thrown in jail again. And there's a fast cycle I'm going to try to go for. I'm going to try it just once because you lose a lot of time if you fail it. I believe the anime has a Blu-ray release now. Like, both subtitled and dubbed. If you really want to watch the dub. I hear it's terrible. So
I'm not a fan of the dub of this.
So for the first room, we just have to wait for some cycles and try to beat them. Okay. Okay, I'm not too slow. Get the running speed. Alright, first room's pretty easy. Second room is where things get challenging. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this guard coming up. And we want to follow closely behind him. We want to keep our run speed, so I'm running into the wall at an angle. If you run just straight into the wall, you just start pushing against it. Okay, wow, I got that. Nice. If you're not careful, you will. Ah, dang. I got caught anyways on the very last guard. Normally you can get into that corner, but I was a little too close to him. Either that or I was just slightly too slow. But at least I got to show off the fast version. But I'm going to do it slow now, just because I don't want to get thrown in here again. So doing it the slow way just means that you're just waiting a couple extra cycles. And that's fine. Just like having to do this cutscene each time and go all the way back is not ideal. Ah. Usually I make that cycle. But yeah, the game's mostly based off the anime. Like I would say about 2/3 of it. The first third and the last third are like follow the anime, and then you got the middle part that just goes off on a tangent. And it's pretty obvious too, because in the middle part there are no animated cutscenes as filler, like there is in the first and third parts. Okay, there we go.
I had to take the healing fountain in the cave because I got ganged up on. I didn't have magic left to destroy them, so I took it to be safe.
Yeah, I can never make it to the cave. Usually I get killed if I try it. Okay, alright, because I'm not on the fast cycle. Almost walked into a guard. So there's even a faster cycling you can go for, but it's tasks only, where the very first guard, you can kind of maneuver, like squeeze by him, but it's like a bunch of like really frame-perfect movements. I'm gonna do this slow because I don't want to get caught. And we got the speed police in chat anyways. So I'm just gonna wait for this guy. And I'm gonna hug this wall because there actually is a guard up there that can spot you from off screen. There we go. So now we're in the scene of the crime and we gotta find clues, but the only place we really need to check is the fire pit or the fireplace, and we have to check it as Fu because each character has different flavor text when examining an object, and Fu's the only one that advances the story. So we found out where the key was stolen, we found out how they got in, how they got out. And then we also find a clue. We find Fario's flute. And wondering why it's here. We're also covered in soot. Okay, good. The kid NPC didn't block my path. So that little green-haired kid NPC will sometimes just block your path for no reason. So here we find Fario with some mysterious woman who looks suspiciously like Alcyone. And Fario is pretty unresponsive to us. And also covered in soot. So conveniently, Rafarga's here. He suggests, like, well, if they stole the key, they're intending to use it, so why not just wait by the gate and see who shows up? So we're just going to be standing here for a while watching as the people go by. How's the lake dungeon going for you?
Just beat the turtle.
Nice. And lo and behold, Fario shows up to no one's surprise. With the mysterious woman who looks exactly like Alcyone. So now we're going to Heaven's Labyrinth, which is a pretty cool dungeon casually. In the speedruns, not so much. There's a lot of platform cycles you're stuck waiting on. But we're not going to do the dungeon. We're actually going to skip the entire thing.
This is the oldest skip that was found in the game. Kind of by accident. Like, Mitjitsu, who's the tasser and another runner, found a different way to skip the dungeon by like getting hit by an enemy at a certain angle, so you just kind of get yeeted across the map and skipping a large portion of it, so you don't have to like, you know, wait for cycles and wait and get the... I forget what part he found, but then he was just fooling around, I think, and found that you can do what Shentok, I guess, is doing right now.
Yep,
and
just did
jumping over the entrance to the dungeon there.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's like a wrong warp in that it loads a different section of the map in terms of collision and pathways, which happens to conveniently be right at the end of the dungeon.
Collision, pathways, and like top-level sprites, because you see the flowers and the heart crystal that you can collect, the HP up thingy.
Yep.
But the rest of the room is the first dungeon's background, so... Ons!
And this was actually the first time in the game we were able to skip getting a spell, because normally there's a spell you're required to get here to complete the dungeon, and it's basically Fu's, it's called Protective Wind, and it basically just lets you levitate over gaps and stuff, which is required.
There's a really long gap at the bottom of the one room that you have to get over.
Yep.
That's Rafarga. I don't want to talk to him yet.
Turns out that Fario was actually under mind control by Alcyone, but it also turns out that Rafarga was under a more powerful mind control by Zagot. And in trying to fight that mind control, he walks off the cliff. So now I have to deal with Alcyone's giant bird minion, and this is also another really cool glitch in the game, where if you stand in a certain spot of the map, the AI breaks on the boss and just spins in circles, so we don't have to deal with its attack patterns or anything. Because this boss is actually really random. And just by standing here, the boss becomes 100% consistent.
This game, this manga, this anime, Rayearth is based off it's from the, based off the anime manga series, which is drawn by the Circle Clamp, which did, Cardcaptor Sakura, Chobits, Angelic Layer, Holic, X 1999, Tsubasa. A lot of people know Makona from Tsubasa because he was in that. That was like the giant Clamp crossover show / series that went weird places.
Yeah, Makona's from this game. It's basically the god of this world. So we saved Fario from mind control. Fu is embarrassed about expressing her feelings for him. And we also get our second ancient machine, because, yeah, we didn't forget about those, right? We got one at the very beginning of the game, and we haven't seen one since. And suddenly we got another one. And our stone buddy Clef is just telling us that we found it. And this one's name is Wyndham. I think there's more cutscenes. Yeah.
I hate the stealth section.
Yeah, this is the only officially released Rayearth game in English.
Curse the fortitude of Rafarga. His
And
will
it's quite a
was much
rare
stronger
collectible.
than we had anticipated. How do you wish to address this situation, dear lord?
Equip your armor and go, Innova. I pray you do not fail.
I shall do exactly as you desire, my liege.
It's a race, yes.
Really? I had really bad luck at the start of the run, so it's not much of a race anymore.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Oops.
First skip took me an extra minute, and then maybe 2 minutes, and then I hecked up Magic Glitch on the very first boss, and the very first boss takes forever without magic, so...
Yeah, it happens. I've had it happen to me. Like, for the very beginning Tokyo Tower skip, you can do RNG manipulation for the NPC, but it's kind of hard to do that in a race because it basically involves resetting the console. So now we're gonna leave this place because we're done here in the Sky Village.
I mixed up the final guard, so I got caught.
Oh no!
I thought you were supposed to follow him on the bottom, but you're supposed to follow him along like right behind him, and then go above. And I figured out like right at the last second, oh, I'm on the wrong spot, and I can't get around him. So do it all over again.
I got caught too, for what it's worth.
I was supposed to catch up a smidge here, and I should just should just forfeit and go back to bed.
Nah. Well, that's up to you. Okay, so now we found Rafarga, but he actually has lost his memory. And the medicine from the Tree of Life may restore his memory, as the old guy had told us. Which we technically did story-wise, but gameplay-wise we completely skipped doing that, but luckily for us, they got the medicine anyways without our help. We clearly weren't needed.
That was like a perfect stealth section too. I did everything else right, and then just forgot how the last guy works.
It's alright, it happens. So now we're going to talk to Athena, who's the head nurse of the hospital of this town, and she's going to give us some medicine as like thanks for saving their hides.
Run speed right before the the third set of guards on the first floor, and I almost overshot the thing because I wasn't expecting to get run speed there. So I almost like ran right in front of one. If you notice, I don't do the quick cycle for the second to last guard where you follow him. I am not confident in my movement to do that.
Yeah, it's really tight, because you're basically trying to squeeze between him and the wall without hitting him. And you have very little time to do that, because he turns around
so
pretty
you
quickly.
Follow this guy and then go above him.
Yep, into the corner.
There we go. I don't know why I forgot that. I was too afraid of the guy above him, I think. I was thinking, oh, you have to go really down low.
So now we got the medicine. Now, Rafarga has his memory back, but now he's wrestling with the mind control again. And he's nice enough to wait for us while he's having a splitting headache. And we follow him in this clearing, and we find him and Alcyone. Or actually find him in Innova, then we find Alcyone.
I need to control the game and stop not paying attention. It's late where I... It's
late here too.
It's past 3 a.m. It's officially butts o'clock here. So we're in the
I did that too soon.
range of time, and I am tired. And yes, there needs to be more anime games run at marathons.
It's
think
hard to find good
because
anime games.
I think because AGDQ should have an anime games done quick block. You know, forget about awful games. We need an anime block.
So Rafarga only has 2 attacks. He has like a sweeping slash attack, and he has a magic attack. And when he's doing the magic attack, he's invulnerable while his eyes are closed. And he also turns red, but nothing changes. He just starts casting magic a bit more often. And ideally, you don't want him casting magic, because that means just waiting around for him to become vulnerable. Ooh. Okay, well good, he's dead. Killed Umi as he died. And then, yeah, sometimes an after image just kind of glitches out there in the cutscene. And since we were unwilling to kill Rafarga because he's no longer able to fight off Zagot's mind control, Innova does the finishing blow for us. Or for him, I guess. Times is large and gassy.
Really?
Oh, that is hilarious.
Nope.
So now a volcano has erupted in the distance after we buried Rafarga. And we believe that's where the final ancient machine is.
Keep hitting this jump too early. Come on.
Which happens to be back in the first town we visited. Polizu.
It's too late.
But now Polizu's been ravaged by the volcano and has opened up the path to the final dungeon that's normally blocked off.
I think I'm hitting the skip for Heaven's Labyrinth too early, but you need to hit it earlier than you think you do, because you need to finish... You kind of need to finish your jump at the same time the transition happens.
Yeah.
Of all the games I speedrun, this is the only one with glitches.
For now.
Okay, find a fishwife skip in Silmir for me, please.
Heck no, I don't want to skip that fight. Okay.
Ooh, Yuki Kajiura music. Go. I recommend that. You can go YouTube that. You don't need to watch this anymore. No. Please watch the marathon.
Okay, my R button decided to stop. There we go. It stopped working for a moment. So R button's very important. It's what lets me swap magic for different characters. By the way, for those interested in Dragon Ball Z video games, there is one on the Saturn that was released only in Japan and Europe. And it's not like the other Dragon Ball Z fighting games that you might be familiar with on the PlayStation. It's really cool, and everything's in 2D. So now we're in the final dungeon, the Lair of Truth. Very ominous sounding. We're gonna skip some of it here. There's this barricade that builds up, but there's a little gap they left in just for us. It's not that important.
I had the wrong character in front. This should be the right position.
Nice, I made that cycle. So this room is heavily cycle-based. So there is a fast cycle for this platform, but it's extremely tough to get. This game is very fun. If you like Legend of Zelda, it's not quite as polished or expansive as that, but it's a similar style of gameplay. Nice. Got it. For those unfamiliar with Saturn emulation, I highly recommend the SSF Saturn emulator. It's the best one I found that works well on lower end PCs and higher end PCs as well. And it's pretty easy to configure. R16 is the latest version. I highly recommend checking it out if you are interested in playing Sega Saturn games but don't want to invest in the console and software. Which I wouldn't blame you. There's a lot of really good Saturn games, but a lot of the good ones are very, very expensive. So here we find Alcyone bleeding to death, and she found out that Zagat, the one she loves, is actually in love with Princess Emerald, his captor. And so she's taken out her anger on us. And so now we're going to use the most powerful spell in the game, called Flash, which is named after Hikaru's dog. Hikaru's dog Flash 3 shots to any boss in the game. It's just its unique property.
I swear, when I was practicing, I was hitting the final, not the final boss, but one of the final bosses, and I swear I hit him with Flash 3 times and he did not die. So I must have missed one and he still did his hurt sound or something.
That's quite possible. So the plot twist is that Zagat is actually in love with Princess Emerald and imprisoned her to free her from her duty. I know, right, Walking Out? I have 3 Sega Saturns. The least everyone could do is have 1.
I know. I have 2 Dreamcasts. Does that count?
Almost. So now we finally have our 3rd ancient machine. We're ready to take on Zagat. Because basically we needed all 3 ancient machines to disrupt the barrier masking Zagat's castle, as explained here.
Talk to Rafarga and then the old man.
Very important.
I have messed that up before. During a marathon, I talked to the old man and then Rafarga, and went back to the Tree of Life, and the flag for the first time you're supposed to go to the town to like clear the dungeon and everything was still there. So I locked my and when you start that first event with the NPC and him running and wanting to take Umi on a date or something, you lock yourself into that event and you can't use your map button. So I just loaded a backup save because I wasn't dealing with that.
Oh, says the man who gave me 2 of them. But I am playing on my childhood Saturn. I bought it for $30 with my own money back in 97 or 98.
A childhood Saturn, but I bought it the day after I got this game.
Close enough.
I got this game $99. Finally dropped under $100, so I pounced on it. And then the next day I was like, "Hey, let's go to Play and Trade and see if they have a Saturn." I didn't even call them ahead of time, and I drove 2 hours to get there, and they just happened to have one.
Nice. Yeah, 3 Gundams. So now we're, in addition to being like one of the earliest isekai animes, we're also a Gundam anime, which was not a new concept by this point. Had been done to death since the 70s.
Yeah, but this time it's magical warrior girls piloting them. That's special.
Yeah, wearing school sailor uniforms. So now we're talking to Prisia. Makona's conveniently sitting in that chair due to us skipping Tokyo Tower. Normally Makona turns around and the chair is empty after he leaves it. But instead, the sprites just glitch. No games. I suppose that makes sense. So now we're going back to the point in the game where we first entered Sephiroth, story-wise. And I forget, like, there's actually a name for that area, but I can't remember it because I haven't done a save there in forever. But basically, we're going to find Clef's still statue, even though we killed Alcyone, but Alcyone wasn't the source of the magic that turned him to stone. Alcyone was just the catalyst for it. But not all is over yet. We now have to deal with Innova, finally, after chasing us around for a while. And turns out Innova's not actually human. Turns out he's a giant wolf spirit beast of sorts that was a protector of Princess Emerald's castle. But he turned to the dark side. And then our boy Fario comes in to remove his horn, even though... Yeah, his horn was like a source of protection. So the unique thing with this boss is that he has variable invulnerability frames. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long, usually they're somewhere in between. And he also has a lot of health casually. Like, he has like... I think Ninjutsu said he had like 160 HP.
Cast a spell, but when I was the glitch, I was still moving. And I slid with Hikaru's arm up. And nothing cast, but it didn't take my MP either.
I've had that happen. That's like another weird glitch.
Oh, Fu died. Okay, I have potions, so it's fine. But
okay, so I can turn on turbo for a little bit. So now we talk to Fario, who's going to let us pass. Talk to Clef, and he tells us to, this is the point of no return. If you hit yes, then you're basically stuck in the end game. And so now we summon our ancient machines, but you only see cars on screen because they're just that massive. But if we watch the cutscenes, you'd see all the ancient machines and watch us storm Zagat's castle. It's wonderful. Real touching moment of camaraderie. Oh, it gets even more anime. You think this is anime? It gets even more anime. So now we're gonna go face off in our final battle against Zagot. We're finally inside his floating castle. And he kind of alludes to us as why he kidnapped the princess, but we're not worried about that. We just know he's evil and we need to take him down. So this boss is kind of unique where he'll move around, and when he's moving around, he has invulnerability frames, and we can only hit him in between those moments. There we go. Nice. And this fight's very, very consistent. As long as you can land the magic lich, it's a very consistent fight. So we think we're all done here, but wait, there's more. He has his own giant robot, aptly named the Eternal Spiral. And now we're changing from an action RPG to a shmup. We're transcending genres as we summon our own giant robots. So, Fu has been our weakest character in the game. Now she's our strongest. Basically, while her arrows individually are the weakest, each arrow does successive damage. So you can defeat this boss in as little as 5 hits. Oh, come on. He's summoning bees.
Bees!
No, I lost Fu. So now I have to go to
no.
Hikaru. I got too distracted by bees.
Bees! Ah, bees!
Ow.
Get your bee emotes in chat. Your bee emotes. Get your bee emotes in chat.
So this fight just got a bit longer.
Yeah, Hikaru's the actual, like, strongest one.
Yeah.
In terms of just her raw hits are the most powerful for this boss.
Yeah, but it's still like 20-something hits with just Hikaru.
Yeah. You want to do as much damage with Fu as like you can.
Normally I would be fine, but I accidentally ran into Zagot at the start of the fight. Because
you wanted a hug!
Yeah. You need to be close to Zagot to land all her arrow shots. And he's just summoning so many bees.
He did that to me in practice the other day. It was just bees on bees on bees on bees. Go up here. No, that's where the fountain is.
But you get to listen to this wonderful track. This is one of my favorite tracks in the game.
I know how to navigate this dungeon, don't worry.
And by the way, most of the soundtrack is running off the Saturn's built-in sound chip, which was a very powerful and good sound chip for this generation.
I missed the cycle.
So now we have finally taken down Zagot for good. We can finally go see the princess and free her from her confines. Confines? Something
Set her
like that.
free.
Yeah, set her free. Trying to use fancy words, apparently.
I knew I was not gonna make that. The jumps in the Lair of Truth are really difficult because they expect you to have the instant dash move. So
Yeah.
a lot of the jumps, I just missed that cycle too. Barely. So a lot of the jumps they expect you to be able to run in place to make them to run and jump, you know? Jump better. But you can just barely make them with and I'm gonna attack this fire snake, because if he knocks me off the platform, I am back to the start of this section here. Because these platforms do not count as solid ground.
So it turns out the princess was actually in love with Zagot and was the source of disruption of Sephiroth, and so Zagot had imprisoned her to free her from her duty, and by killing Zagot, we have killed her one true love. And
She mad.
now she's mad and wants to destroy the world, so we have to stop her, and that was the whole reason why we were summoned, is to kill her. But as we are, we cannot fight, we cannot possibly challenge her awesome power and her giant robot, which I do not know its name, because the game does not say it like it does for Zagot's. But Makona's gonna go all Voltron on us and combine our mechs into one super mech. And this boss is pretty unique in that it has a set pattern of attacks. It always does the same thing, and it just like its movement is just trailing you around. And we use that to our advantage, obviously, just to avoid getting hit as much as possible, but there are some attacks that are nearly impossible to avoid. And technically, like, they expect you to destroy each body part, but the only part you actually have to destroy is the head. Ooh, nice, only took 2 damage there. So you do have a unique magic attack that does like a decent chunk of damage. You can move out of the way for that. Okay, and you can't kill the final boss with this magic attack. It does decent damage, I guess, but I'm mostly using it for the iframes so I don't die, because this boss hurts a lot. Like, there is a significant difficulty spike, and from the most of the game to this boss. Let's see, and that is time for me.
Excellent work.
And congratulations on that run. We're going to stay here as Karaoke continues her run now.
Yeah, you got this, Kari.
Don't despair, for you see, the outcome is exactly as Emerald had planned. And at last, your destiny is fulfilled.
Princess Emerald! Hikaru, Umi, and Fu. You have fulfilled all that was asked
Kari's
of you.
power just went out.
Remember this. No matter where you
That's
go,
not good.
the strength of your mind and spirit is the most powerful magic of all. But Emerald! Wow!
All right, chat. We'll be right here with you. We're gonna see what we can figure out with this. It looks like something may have happened with on Kari's side, but we will get that figured out in just a moment, and I will keep you all updated.
So yeah, basically beat the game, defeat the princess, and go back home. Only to be summoned right back shortly afterwards in Season 2, apparently. That's what I've been told. So they don't even get a chance to enjoy their time back in Tokyo. Yeah, it looks like Kari's power is partially out, which is too bad. Because she was doing really good. But it was a lot of fun being able to race this game. It's definitely a rare treat for me, because there are so few runners, and I haven't been active in this game for almost a year since I did a run at RPG Limit Break last year. Because it was just time to move on to new and better things. But yeah, thank you so much for accepting me and Kari for this race. It was a lot of fun. And I hope the rest of the marathon goes real smooth.
Certainly, and thank you very much for coming on to the stream as well and racing this with us. Congratulations on the run, and apologies again to Karaoke for having the issues with your stream. But just to let everybody know, next up we are going to have Toho 6 Embodiment of Scarlet Devil run by Freya's Spirit. Once we can get that lined up, there is an incentive that I believe will be open for just a few more minutes for the character choice for that game. So if you're interested in seeing a particular character, definitely get your donations in soon before that timer runs out.